Welcome everyone to another episode of The Inside Word. My name is Lachlan Mclean from Beer Cartel, Australia's #1 craft beer retailer. For our 17th episode, I follow up with Beer Cartel director Richard Kelsey about the recently released results from this year's craft beer survey. I hope you enjoy. Welcome Rich, and thank you for joining me today.
Good to be here.
I guess, we spoke a couple months ago, I think, just as the survey was kind of in progress. It's all wrapped up now. You've done the results, and we're here to kind of go through some of the key findings.
Yep, sounds good.
I guess before we kind of dig into what the results were, but I guess how many people did it, and I guess what was the demographics of those people?
Yeah, so this year we had over 23,000 people take part in the survey, which is massive. Last year it was 18,000, the year before 17,000, and the very first year we did it, we had around about 7,000. I think I kind of mentioned in our last podcast, if you get in a normal research sort of survey, if you have around about 1,000 people take part, that's a really good result. So when you get 23 times that, it's huge. And this, if it was actually done on a commercial scale, it's probably like a $80,000 to $100,000 project.
Yeah, wow. I guess when you then have a just even a percent change, it's a statistically significant change then.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one thing I had to look through here, was to work out what is significant, and just a single percentage point change is significant. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
So I guess also for the demographics of the people that take part, who is kind of the person, or who have been who's doing the survey? So
one of the key things to think about is that this is just of craft beer drinkers. That's the what we call the universe that we're looking at. So we're not looking at the general population. We're only looking at people that drink craft beer. And across every year that we've done this study, that the demographics have been very, very similar. So from age, from gender, from the location that they're based, it's been very, very similar. So this year, the average age was 38 years, which is on par with every other year. Yeah. From a gender point of view, females were a bit higher than previous. So 23% of people that took part were female, and that's up 3%. So yeah, right. It shows that more females are getting into craft beer.
That's nearly an extra 1,000 people, 1,000 females completing the survey. Be rough maths.
Yeah, something along those ones. Yeah, and then from a state point of view, across Australia, it's very similar each year. Queensland was, I think it was four percentage points higher this year, and I think that kind of reflects that Queensland's a really growing market. There's been quite a few new breweries that have popped up over there, and some very good quality ones as well.
Yes, but Bolter and Black Hops are all from that Gold Coast region, and the Green Beacon, Newstead. There's a lot of strength up in Queensland. I guess driving that.
Oh, absolutely. And then you've got small guys as well, so like Lost Palms, Currumbin Valley,
Range.
Range.
A lot of really good breweries.
So there's lots going on there. Fallon's, that's directly in Brisbane CBD. So you're seeing quite a lot around.
I guess for this year's survey, there's kind of a spotlight. It does change kind of year on to year. What was this year's spotlight for the survey?
So this year we looked at a couple of different things. So one of the key things, obviously, is craft beer as an industry has a lot of small, independently owned businesses. And so I think it's always important to get an understanding of what that independence means to people. And so I think that's pretty important. As well as that, we looked at packaging. So just trying to understand, is there a difference between what people think about a 4-pack versus a 6-pack, or a case of 16 versus a case of 24? Outside of that, we also looked at so previously we found that there were a large amount of people that were trying new beers all the time. And so this one, we sort of wanted to dig a bit deeper in that and to understand what impact that kind of has, and what percentage of beers are kind of new beers versus core range beers from breweries.
Yeah, so I guess the survey is it's not about just necessarily comparing year on year to the exact same data. You're always looking for new information and kind of comparing different things. But I guess compared to previous years, what were the spotlights? What were the headlines of those ones?
So in the past, we've again looked at independents. We've looked at buyouts. So I think it was last year we looked at how many people were aware of Four Pines, Pirate Life, Takeover Referral. We've done some other stuff on packaging, looking at can size and bottle size and what people think around those. Some stuff around specialty releases. There's quite a bit that we've covered over the years.
Yeah, right. I guess, so on this year's Spotlight of Independence, what were the key questions and results of that?
Yeah, so one of the first ones was just looking at awareness of the independent seal. So that got launched in May 2018. And when we did the survey last year, the survey was about June to August last year, and 33% of people taking part in the survey were aware of the Seal of Independence. This year it's grown, so it's now 41%. So it's gone up 8%. So it's a great starting point. And now it's just up to the IBA, the Independent Brewers Association, to really push that home.
When you ask those questions, is it a case of just asking, do you know the seal or do you recognise the seal? Or does it dig into kind of, does the seal actually mean something for you and does it influence your buying habits?
Yeah, so for those people that said, yeah, I am aware of the seal, everyone got shown the seal and said, are you aware of the seal? We then ask what impact it had or what influence it has on the beers people buy. And from that, we found 58% had a sort of medium to large impact on the beers that they purchase. So, it means that, when you think about the seal, the more it's shown, the more people are going to look for it. And people do use it as a guide on what beers are independent and to help them decide which beers to buy.
I guess on the independence as well, and do people recognise it, and does it influence their buying habits? I guess it also comes down to just what does independence mean to people. How was that kind of answered? Yeah,
so before I did the survey, basically each year I go out to the industry and say, what are the key things you're looking for? So I talked to all sorts of different breweries. Doesn't matter if they are independent or not independent. Also talked to the Independent Brewers Association, and so they provided with a list of different sort of words that people could use to choose what independent beer sort of means to them. The key one, 78% of people said that independent beer means that it's made by an independent brewery. So it's kind of almost a bit like an obvious thing, but it's reassuring to know that 78% of people do think that. As well as that, there are a few other different options that people had. So the next one was is crafted, not manufactured. So 48% of people said that. Made by a small brewery, 44% of people said that. Australian made and owned, 43% said that, and supports small business, 42%. So I guess what's interesting there is, while people do know that independent beer means it's made by an independent brewery, some of the other kind of, aspects of an independent brewery aren't necessarily that well etched into what people think about independent beer.
I guess, with the seal as well, like it is Australian only independent breweries. So I know the Brewers Association of America have got their own one, and that whole, I think that was when you said about the Australian made. I guess that's key as well. It's just because you're independent also does mean that you are Australian. It's not independent international breweries. Just because they don't have it doesn't mean they're not independent either.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess moving on from the independents, you mentioned at the start one of the key takeaways was packaging.
Yep.
What were some of the key takeouts from that?
Yeah, so one of the things we looked at was, does it really matter buying 4 or 6 packs or a case of 16 or a case of 24? So we know some of the most well-known breweries out there, like Bolter, for instance, has a case of 16 and sells their beers by the 4-pack. So are they inclined to go one way or another? From the 4 and 6-pack sort of perspective, people prefer a 6-pack, even though the higher overall cost. So in the actual question, we kind of said, okay, imagine you could buy a 6-pack where the 4 beers cost $20, or a 4-pack where the 4 beers cost $20, or a 6-pack where the 4 beers cost $30. And the majority, the majority of people, 64%, I think it was, 60% said that they'd prefer beer in a 6-pack.
Yeah, right.
So it's interesting because when we think about people that are buying in our store or buying online, we always kind of think that 4-packs often move a lot faster.
Yeah, and I guess that's a representation of kind of what the breweries are doing as well. Not necessarily that result, but what we kind of think. I feel like more breweries are moving to 4-packs.
Yeah, exactly.
Than the other way.
Yeah, so that was interesting to note. And then when you look at it at a case of 16 or a case of 24, 54% said case of 24 versus 42% case of 16. So again, you've got more people that are keen to buy a case of 24 than a case of 16.
Do you think that's got to come down to, I guess, the perception that the cases of 24 traditionally are a bit cheaper, and then the ones that are kind of more expensive beers come in 16s, I guess?
Could be, but I mean, when you look at this and the way we sort of pitched it, we said, okay, you've got a case of 16 that's $60, so it's $3.75 a can, or you've got a case of 24 where it's $90 and it's $3.75 a can. So we kind of framed that in that way just so that it sort of takes away that kind of thinking anyway. And so, yeah, even with that perspective, people were still leaning towards the case of 24. I guess one thing to kind of say to that is that while there are more people saying that they'd rather a case of 24, it doesn't mean that if someone offered a case of 16 that they just wouldn't buy it. But from a preference point of view, that's kind of where people are.
Yeah, right. And I guess on that as well, we're talking about buying a case of 24. I know from our experience at Beer Cartel, and I think possibly last year, one of the questions was around buying 4-pack singles. A lot of people were buying singles. A lot of people are going for the new releases. In our experience, like you said, one was question was around limited releases versus core. What was the kind of takeouts from that?
Yeah, so I mean, in last year we did find that there was a large proportion of people buying new beers. And I thought it was really important to sort of delve a bit deeper to get a better understanding on that. And so when we look at core range beers, they're mainly bought by the case or by the 4 or 6-pack. So 52% of people buy a core range beer on a sort of weekly to fortnightly basis, and 38% buy them monthly to every few months. Whereas when you look at new and limited release beers, they're bought 26% are buying them on a weekly to fortnightly basis, and 43% monthly or every few months, and then people sort of down after that. But when you actually look at it from a packaging perspective, of those buying core range beers, 56% are buying them by the 4 or 6-pack, and 37% buying them by the case as their sort of main format they're buying in. And when you look at new and limited release beers, it's 47% buying them by the single, and 47% sort of buying them by the 4 or 6-pack. So it really does show that new and limited release beers are bought less frequently, and they're bought in much smaller sort of format sizes, whereas you got your core range, they're bought more often and they're bought in the larger format sizes. So there's going to be significantly more volume that still goes through core range beers.
Yeah, right. It's kind of I think both those on both the limiteds and on the cases, it kind of goes against what I think I would have given the answer as before the results came out, which is kind of interesting to know. I guess what we kind of see here and what kind of happens isn't necessarily always the case in Australia.
Yeah, so I guess our business, we're very much catering for something that's new, and we're not like a Dan Murphy's, for instance. So we're not trying to move huge volumes. We don't have huge deep pockets, and we're not trying to just go
by pallets at a time.
Exactly. So, I mean, it is interesting, and I guess it helps give us perspective on what the whole market's like as well.
What do you think from both those kind of key questions? Next year when the survey comes around, what do you hope to see the breweries have done? Do you think we'll start seeing more 24s and 6-packs, or?
It's really up to them. We try and do these to help give them information that they can then make a decision on. From there, they can take it whichever way they want. So I've even had, in the last month or 2 months, I've had people contact me saying, okay, we're looking at what we're going to do with exactly in this space. So case of 16 versus case of 24, what should we do? And so at least I was able to go, okay, well, the data so far from the survey is saying this. So it's all about helping and giving a bit of extra information. And then it's really up to people to decide what they do. And it also depends on sort of what their business model is as well. Yeah. So if you look at someone like Dainton, for instance, that they're constantly bringing out new releases, and you don't necessarily see their core range as much. So that they've got a completely different model. So compared to, say, Stone and Wood, where a vast majority of their beers that are sold are kind of their core range beers.
Yeah, right. I guess on the other key topic we're talking about for this survey was kind of links into the independents, but it was the attitude towards craft. What's the consumer base thinking of the craft beer industry at the moment?
So I guess the good thing is 85% of people agreed that they're excited about the direction that craft beer is heading. So it's, when you're like us, really into the industry and really engaged in the industry, sometimes it's hard for us to kind of take a step back and see what's happening and get a really firm understanding on what consumers generally are thinking. So, it's great to see that people are excited about it. 76% believe for a craft brewery to survive, drinkers need to be buying their core range. So
yeah, right.
I think that's a reassuring thing. I know I've read some articles in America, and I know in America there is actually a day set up to celebrate core range beers, because it's something that breweries feel like that they're getting less sales through of those. And I know that there are a large amount of breweries that are sort of changing the business model, because core range in the past was such a huge part of their business, but now they've got to sort of balance it with core range and then new limited release beers at the same time.
Yeah, I guess limited releases. I think every time you put out a new beer, it's new marketing, new labels, new cans, new everything, new recipes, new PDs. There's a lot more effort that goes into creating a limited release than just putting out another whole lot of core range.
Exactly. And so it's it is definitely a challenge when you're putting out new beers all the time, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. Any other takeouts from the attitudes towards craft?
So again, as we've seen in the past, 93% believe the quality of craft beer in Australia is improving. So that's reassuring that people still think that we are going forward rather than going backwards. So really, really good to see there. 89% say they're a big supporter of independent craft beer. So people are naturally inclined to kind of support and get behind independent craft breweries, which is really great. And 87% encourage their friends and family to try craft beer. So there's definitely people that are already craft beer drinkers that are getting their friends and family to get into craft beer as well.
All those stats paints a pretty positive and exciting light for the next 12, 24 months going forward in the industry.
Exactly.
I guess the second part of the whole survey that always comes out and people like to look at is you do the awards, kind of looking at a whole load of things from best. What have we got? Best festival to best beer week to a whole load of things. Best news place. The two that I kind of thought we'd just touch on, two of the bigger ones. The first one is the best venues.
Best venues, yep.
So you do best venues by state.
Yep.
Who were they? Who won it? Who took it out this year?
And so you're talking about brewery venues?
No, we'll go...
Craft beer bars?
Craft beer, let's do craft beer bars.
Okay, cool. So, In each state, Queensland, Brewski took it out. New South Wales, the Grain Store up in Newcastle. Canberra, ACT, the Old Canberra Inn. Victoria was Carwyn Cellars. Tasmania, St John Craft Beer Bar. South Australia, the Wheat Sheaf Hotel, or the Wheatie. And Western Australia, the Dutch Trading Co. So amongst those, the Dutch Trading Co. is the only new one that hadn't won it last year.
Yeah, right. I guess two big ones on that, the Grain Store and St John's Craft Beer Bar, the only two that aren't in a capital city.
Yeah, so, I mean...
That's amazing.
Yeah, you're doing very well when you're chosen as sort of number one outside of the capital city. So congrats to those guys.
Congrats to all of them. I guess... The second one we'll touch on, for anyone out there listening to this, we'll talk about how to get access to all the results, but these was just a couple of two key ones that we'd touch on, and that was the top 5 breweries in the state. Oh, I'm teeing up Rich here. Yeah, we'll do the top 5 breweries.
Top 5 breweries
we'll go from
in Australia?
We'll go reverse order.
Okay, so number 5, congratulations, Black Hops. Number 4, Bridge Road. Number 3, Stone and Wood. Number 2, Bent Spoke. And number 1, Bolter.
Congratulations to all. How does that change from previous years?
So Bolter again was number 1, so second year in a row. Before that, I think it was Pirate Life and Feral. So We've had, over the course of 4 years, we've had 3 different breweries. Bolter's the first brewery to take out number 1 2 years in a row. The big mover, Bent Spoke, moved to second from 6th the year before. Stonewood and Bridge Road moved up 1 spot each, and Black Hops moved from 10th to 5th this year.
Wow. I guess on that as well, there's, compared it to last year, how's the independents kind of played into it? Has it been kind of, the Four Pines and Pirate Life kind of dropping away a little bit? Where did they kind of come? Yeah,
so we've seen them compared to, what was it, 2017, Pirate Life was number 1. I think they're now outside the top 10 or at the very back end of the top 10. So, it's amazing. Just when you change your ownership, you naturally fall down the ranking. So
yeah, right. I guess that's kind of also seen in the Hottest 100 as well.
Yeah, it's true. Yep. It's true. And yeah, I mean, Pirate Life this year did have quite a few that sort of dropped down. But yeah, so there's there's Pirate Life, Four Pines, Little Creatures is still quite high up in these in the research. So that they are still very good breweries. They do very good beers. It's just that the ownership has changed.
Yeah, right. So I guess for everyone out there, this has just been a little snapshot of some of the key takeouts from the survey. We're not going to delve right into all the details. I think there's 10 plus award categories. So we're not going to go through all of them. But for everyone out there, how can they access all the information?
So easiest way is just to do a Google search, craft beer survey. And yeah, you'll be able to find this year's one from there. Yeah,
right. I think last but not least, I know you've been working many hours for the last months and months putting this all together, especially in the last week or so, 2 weeks putting the report together. Have you thought about next year's?
Not yet.
Any ideas on what some key ideas that might be floating around might be?
No, I haven't even got to that thinking yet. So, yeah, the focus has been on this one and getting this one done. Basically, from here, after we put this out, we also then give the industry an industry report, and the whole idea there is to actually help them with the extra insights to guide their businesses. So that's the next big project.
It never stops.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming and chatting about it. I hope for everyone that's out there, have a look at it. There's some fascinating information about the craft beer industry. And thank you so much.
Thanks.
To everyone listening, I highly recommend that you have a look through the results. They do provide an incredible insight into the craft beer industry. Once again, thank you so much to Rich, and if you have any questions, please let us know on our Facebook group, Beer Cartel's Craft Beer Collective. If you would like to continue to stay up to date with the latest from the craft beer industry, please hit subscribe at either iTunes Podcast, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. That's it for today. I'll see you next time.